Adventure Ho Lumineers. I'm back! Finally!
You
I'm
made
finally
it.
somewhat healthy enough to join the podcast again. We're still fighting off whatever's left over of the illnesses I've been dealing with, but we're here. I'm back. My name's Ryan. I'm happy to be here. I'm ecstatic. We have a very special episode for you. For those that have been following us the entire time, you may notice that this is our 1 year anniversary from posting our very first podcast episode. So thank you for all of you that have joined us along the way, any point, as well as the most recent past. And those that have been listening the entire time, thank you as well. We have two very special guests with us as well. We have Spice Lord Lance joining us because he was competing in an event this weekend that we want to hear more about. And we have Uncle Scrooge Connor to really get his flowers for his hot take, I think pre-fabled, pre-rotation, about the changing ink identities. So we'll dive into a bit of that on this very special happy anniversary episode. So welcome back, friends. Welcome back, Mac. Again, you are the mainstay here. And let's start off where we always do. What's new in your world? Mac, what's new?
New in my world is trying to navigate a very giant snowstorm that hit our area in Minnesota this past weekend. It's kind of crazy. A week ago, when we recorded last week's episode, it was 50 degrees and there wasn't any snow on the ground in our area. And this past weekend, anywhere from 9 inches to about 2 feet of snow. Lance can tell us a little bit more about his experience with the snow, because I think you were more so on the 2-foot side there in your household.
Oh, yeah.
But all in all, it was good, because those of us with little kids, they tend to like playing in the snow, so they couldn't get enough of it, and it was a lot of fun to watch them run around still. But from an adult side, when you're trying to manage a house, snow blowing can get a little bit tedious with a snowstorm like that. But we moved forward. Overall, we had a good time though, and just like that, like all of the snow is like starting to melt already again, and I think by the end of this week it will be gone. But such is life in Minnesota come the spring months for sure. Other than that, I followed a lot of the DLC Taipei this past weekend. It was a lot of fun to watch that, and having a lot of DLCs occur over the course of the last couple weeks. Glad to see that Green Blue made an appearance. Shout out to Ed. He's making it back to Worlds, which I think is fantastic for the community and for those of us that like watching the competitive scene. For those of you who don't know, Ed is very well known in the professional scene, and he was runner-up to DKP at Worlds in the first ever Season 1 Worlds, where a lot of people thought he was the favorite going into that finals, and DKP kind of showed up at the right time. But I really like watching Ed. He's such a fun player to follow, and he seems like a very humble guy too, so he's very likable. So that's me over the course of the last week, was watching another DLC as well as trying to navigate the snowstorm along the way. So I'm going to move over to Uncle Scrooge. Connor, what's new in your world?
Yes, thank you again for having me on such a momentous podcast episode. Very excited for the progress that you guys have made this entire time. I love listening. It's been great to support you all. So thank you again for having me. But what's new in my world? Very similar to what seems to be a lot of the parents nowadays, is just we have been stricken with illnesses left and right every other couple of days. Currently dealing with some respiratory issues. As you may hear, I'm a little bit congested, but overall things are progressing in the right direction, which is great. Sadly, my daughter, a little over 2 years old, she broke her leg a couple weeks ago, and we got some x-rays today, and things are looking much better, and she's able to do a little bit of walking, which is nice, but she is quite frustrated with the lack of mobility, which is kind of a pain, especially when we're kind of trapped inside from the snowstorm, as Mac mentioned just a few moments ago. But otherwise, we are trending in the right direction. It is supposed to be like 50-60 degrees this weekend, so we are very pumped for the weather to get much nicer. But from a Lorcana standpoint, I have been playing blue-green for a few sets now, and I am pumped that Ed was able to take this DLC Taipei. I rewatched the finals again, and it is incredible. I loved it. Granted, there were some mentions of misplays periodically from his opponent. I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, but he was running Blurple as well. But it was incredible. There's so many plays that were just like, wow, like that is like if he didn't draw this card at this time, or if he it went back and forth. It was so exciting. If you haven't had a chance to rewatch that final, I would definitely tune in. And so I'm getting a little bit more confidence because I still think that blue green was my deck of choice, and so seeing that Ed can make it work, it's like, oh, why can't I make it work, right? So because that's the only difference really, is just that we're operating at different levels completely for competitive reasons. But other than that, things have been great.
I have to say, Connor, what are your thoughts on Ink Geyser? Because knowing you, you're the one that loves that card, and I bet that was nice to see Ed pull that one out in the finals.
Oh yes. Ah, gosh. So I was trying to watch him. I watched the cards that he was drawing and seeing what he was doing. And when I saw the Ink Geyser come through, I want to say it was in a Vision of the Future. I was like, oh, this is perfect. And I thought he already had like a way to bounce some of his the opponent's characters. I think he had a Basil, but he went a different route and like full sang, like Under the Sea, dropped guys. Oh, it's perfect. I loved it. And so I was also very curious to see how they handled their inkwells, because I have no idea how to tell my opponent, like, yeah, just pick up all 15 of your cards and we'll just pick up some random ones and go top, bottom, middle, and go from there. So it's nice to see a professional actually showcase what I'm supposed to do from a courtesy standpoint.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that card, I immediately thought of you, and it was fun to see on stream because it's not something that I think Ink Geyser is a card that people have wanted to make work for a while and just didn't know how to fit it, because I think mainly more so than anything else, the fact that it's uninkable and it's a very valuable slot in that type of deck. But yeah, that was fun to see, and he obviously made it work to perfection, and he was rewarded for it. But yeah, good time to watch that one. Lance, what about you? What's new in your world?
Well, I think along similar lines there, working through some household illnesses. Small children, they are little plague monsters sometimes, but you gotta love them. So working through that on a personal level, and had my mother-in-law come to town, so that was a fun little weekend to get a chance to spend some time with her and spend some time with the family. And then, of course, Lorcana Front, participating and competing in that Frosty 500, which was an absolute blast, and I was so glad to take the hour drive up north to go to that tournament, see some great friends, and play some wonderful Lorcana.
Yeah, that Frosty 500 seemed like quite a nice event. We'll get into some more details in a little bit, because I want to hear all about it, because I heard it was an absolute blast when I was texting with Nathaniel, our absent DuckTale dad. I failed to mention in the opening that Nathaniel's off this week, as he's on a work trip, so he has more important, fun things to do than sit down at night and record a podcast with us. But he'll be back soon. He'll be back next week, and we're looking forward to having him back for sure. So I'll wrap us up. My update. Obviously, I am finally back from the string of illnesses we've been fighting off. Still fighting off the tail end of whatever respiratory junk I caught from my kiddos last. They both developed new coughs recently, so I'm hoping I don't catch whatever that is right on top of this. So let's get some nice warmer weather so we can all get outside more often and let the sunshine burn off all these bugs for us. On a Lorcana front, I've just been playing on Fight Club and having a blast. It's a good old time. I had a deck list sleeved up and ready to go for the Frosty 500. I was this close to being a last-second addition to the field there, but ultimately was not healthy enough in order to make it to that event and make it through that event, as well as have the household set up for success while I was gone. So I was not able to make it, unfortunately, but it looked like it was a blast, and I am jealous and looking forward to the next one, that's for sure. Also, very much looking forward to set championships. That's very on the near horizon here. In just 2 weeks' time, it looks like we'll be talking about set championships on the immediate horizon. So the first weekend of April is the first weekend of set championships, fellas. Are we feeling ready? Are we feeling unprepared? Where are we at with our level of preparation?
I need cards, so if any of you can help me with my deck list, I got to fill out the rest of my deck. But yeah, typically the first couple weekends that we mentioned in the past is pretty sweaty. That's where a lot of the people tend to bring their best decks because they want to win and get that mad as soon as possible. And then towards the tail end is where we see the fun decks come out. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. I feel like we say it every set rotation now that you blink and then set champs is right around the corner. But this one felt like it was truly like full force in your face as soon as possible. And maybe that's just kind of as a result of all the DLC season, there's been a lot more streaming you could observe, and therefore that's maybe allowed time to jump, and have that feeling as well. But yeah, Set Champs is right around the corner, and I am not ready personally. How are you feeling, Lance and or Connor? Let's start with you, Lance.
I'm kind of feeling similar. I've been doing as much practice as I can, playing online and trying to do some cam games here and there. There's nothing like actually having the cards in front of you and playing right. But, just trying to find a rhythm there and trying to find the right deck to play. I kind of stick with my comfort pick a lot of the time, which is Purple Steel. And I know the lines, I know what I'm supposed to do, but also with Blurple emerging the way it is, and then, of course, seeing some of these dog decks that absolutely dominate the field, it's been challenging. And not gonna lie, I've lost a lot of games recently. But overall, it's been a lot of fun to kind of see where this meta is shaking up, and I'm looking forward to see where it evolves over the course of the next few weeks leading into Set Championship, because I'm ready to win another playmat. I got 2 last set. I'm trying to get at least 1 this set.
Ooh,
Wow.
big
Love
talk
that.
here.
Love that.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful I can luck my way into another playmat. So we're on very different playing fields there, it seems. Connor, how you feeling? You prepared for Set Championships?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I've gotten some testing in, as Lance alluded to as well. Like, I'm losing so many games. Like, it is just so many different decks that are just blowing mine out of the water. And I think it's just stubborn me. I refuse to try and play the net deck game and be a picker. And I'll try and throw different cards in, and I'll have my 38th variant of the deck I'm running losing to the dog's deck that I've seen every other couple of days. So it is just loss after loss. But, losses are the greatest way to learn and the greatest way to see like what the pattern is and what they're doing. And so I do feel, I feel okay. I feel all right. And definitely a step down from Lance. I'm looking to make top 8. I would love that. And I would love to maybe get to like top 4. I think that'd be great. I only get to go to like 1 or 2, but top 8, to get that promo, call it good, have some fun, see some good people. That's all I need.
Ain't that the truth? Well, you mentioned net decking, and so I think that I'll take this opportunity to transition us into the Frosty 500, because our favorite net decker and our strongest net decker, apparently, Nathaniel, who is absent today and cannot defend his name, so we can slander it as much as we want. Just kidding, Nathaniel. What net decked? He's called himself in the past a certified net decker. Took JDRR's public Blurple list and apparently ran the table at the Frosty 500. Lance, you want to regale us with a recap of the competitive side of the Frosty 500?
Yeah, so it was an absolute blast. First of all, AJ, shout out to him for putting something amazing on again. Ellie for judging for us. It was an absolute amazing experience as always. That being said, we had 33 players show up ready to go, and there was so much dog hate out there. I was actually surprised that we only saw, I think, like 2 or 3 dog decks, and everything else was anti-dog. And so as we went in, all of us teching for those dog decks, it was kind of a slog playing some. We saw some Sugar Rush Speedway decks. We saw some Blurple, some Baja, a couple Purple Steels, of course, some really spicy lists that ended up top 8ing throughout the field. Emerald, Amethyst, and then, of course, the Ruby Emerald, I think a lot of folks are talking about right now. So there was a lot to be said about everyone that showed up and everyone that was ready to play. Blurple ran the table in terms of top 8. I think we had 4 of the top 8 as Blurple matchups, and then I myself was on Purple Steel, made top 8. We had 2 Emerald Amethyst and that Ruby Emerald. Now, that being said, again, going into those matchups, everyone there was playing at such a high level, it felt like every game was just a sweat fest. Of course, I didn't get a chance to play Nathaniel. I was looking forward to crushing him, and I guess I'll just have to wait till the next time we meet up, continue taking out the DuckTale Dads here. But overall, it was an absolute blast.
It sounds like it was quite the sweat fest, and there was some very high-level play across the board. So, how did 4 Blurple make the top 8? I feel like Blurple's been on the downhill here recently. Dogs has been taking over. Only didn't see much Dogs. Now Blurple all of a sudden is in like half of the top 8 of this Minnesota event. So what in the world happened? Any idea?
I know for one, I heard that
They come back?
most of the people running Blurple never actually matched up against each other. They all kind of dodged, which is kind of just, it's so funny how that works out.
Yeah, that's what I heard too, is that they all just somehow dodged each other. There was only like one mirror match the entire day, and then all of a sudden, oh, you're on Blurple? Wait, you're on Blurple. It was the Spider-Man meme. Everyone pointing at each other saying, you're on Blurple, I'm on Blurple. What's going on here? Lance, you're back. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I asked,
I'm back.
how did 4 Blurples make the top 8?
Well, and I think you kind of mentioned it there. None of them really kind of paired up against each other. I lost my only Blurple matchup. It was my only loss of the day, and it's because I teched so heavily into Dogs that I just lost the Blurple matchup and didn't find any 1-drops, which made it really hard to win. But overall, like, I think that because everyone was tech so hard to that, those Blurple matchups just crushed their opponents, right? Anytime anybody got any big bodies, it was Hades, it was Into the Unknown, right into the Inkwell. So overall, I think they got really lucky in terms of those matchups. And again, those folks running Blurple were really skilled players. I mean, you talk about Nathaniel. Nathaniel's a great player. You talk about Christian, another great player who was on Blurple. So overall, the skill expression was definitely there.
Sure. You mentioned spicy deck lists. Do you have a spiciest pick, being the Spice Lord yourself?
I mean, I think the spiciest list was the Demonic Snowman Rituals by Micah. That was something that absolutely came out of far left field. And I remember listening to the discussion around this deck before the tournament even started. And he was joking that he was the only deck ever that says, hey, you know what? I want to go second. I don't think we've ever had that in Lorcana until now, and just watching this gameplay was absolutely amazing and something that I want to try out and build. Of course, all the deck lists being on Inkdex, so thank you, AJ and Ellie, for getting those uploaded for people to try out. Something definitely to be on the lookout for at your local set championships.
I actually was able to make like a 5-minute appearance on Saturday during the Frosty 500 because, ironically, as we all know, I'm working on this bathroom and I needed more supplies, and the store that I went to was a mile away from the game store, so I was like, I'll stop by, say hi for 5 minutes. I also noticed a Ruby Sapphire list. People were definitely exploring. I saw Ruby Amethyst, to your point, Lance, the Ruby Emerald. It feels like people were trying the Ruby tech to get rid of Dogs. I guess that's something different than your traditional Blurple or Purple Steel that we see that kind of just overtakes the meta at its current state right now. So that was really fun to see people exploring a little bit with, I think, the purpose of this event. Yes, it was competitive. There was, decent prize support with this type of event. So people obviously wanted to win there, but at the same time, it almost was like an opportunity for people to explore different decks before the true competitive month starts in set champ season. So Ruby was a lot of fun to watch, and trying to see what people are trying to play with an ink color that really hasn't seen a lot of love. So it was fun chatting everyone up. And I know Nathaniel, as the golden retriever as he is, just loved talking to people. But yeah, it's something that, it's a shame that I couldn't make it. It's something that I was looking forward to, but obviously other priorities are kind of a little bit higher on my list for my life right now. And but still, it was still fun to say hi and chat it up and seeing what people are excited about. And I did appreciate the anti-dog meta. So, Scrooge, you had some thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think that I can't remember who alluded to this in previous podcasts, but they said everyone anticipates the most meta deck to be played, whether it's the Dogs or the Emerald Steel discard Diablo decks back in the days. But the trend has been that people are so Minnesota nice that they don't want to play some of those decks. And so they're like, I'll just build to something to play against it. And then no one plays it, and then it's just complete chaos. And so I think that's the funniest thing, again, that there's a big tournament, and everyone's like, dogs have been running around crazy, but they are just like no one plays it. It's just maybe 2 people out of the 33, as Lance said. But it's just so funny to me that like, oh, I'm not gonna be that guy. I don't want to be mean. I'm not gonna play that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
people
it
are
is
just
kind of
getting
interesting
ready
the way
Yeah,
that
for
it plays
what
out.
set champs are going to be. So I'm anticipating dogs coming back up in the set champ season, but we'll see. I hope that the Minnesota Nice still comes out, but as I've alluded to before, dogs in purple, that's essentially what we're going to see, and so you better be ready for it come a couple weeks from now.
Can't wait
Yeah,
for
I'm
it.
ready for
Can't
it.
wait to see.
Let's see all that purple steel, all that blurple.
Wait to see only Blurple and Purple Steel and no dogs anywhere, and everybody checked against it. Everyone's inking their wasabis and inking their Benjas. Oh, poor Benja, getting a lot of hate in the Minnesota Discord right now. Great card against dogs, but not great against a lot of other things, unfortunately. All right, well, there was another game type that was played at the Frosty 500 lands. I heard tell of something called multiplayer pack rush. Please enlighten us as to what this is and how
Yes.
chaotic it can be.
Oh, it was probably one of the most fun experiences that I've had at a tournament. And it was completely spur of the moment, spontaneous. We had gotten to round 6 of this tournament. And several of us, of course, ID'd, and we were waiting on the final round to go ahead and conclude. And we all thought, you know what, let's do some pack rush real quick. So I went up to the front, I picked up like 10 packs, and said, all right, let's do this a little different. So it was myself, Nathaniel of DuckTale Dads lore, and Nathaniel Rosado, who was also at the tournament, and then Christian, of course. And we sat down and we did 4-player pack rush multiplayer. So some of y'all have played multiplayer before in past experiences. Some of the stores have run multiplayer pods. This one was so much fun because we did not look at our cards. If someone was running an iconic in there, it was definitely going to be raw on the table, no sleeves, no holds bar. And it was constant shenanigans. Who is going to take out who? Who is going to stop this potential threat? Who was going to lie and say that they were going to take out that threat, but quest instead? So overall, it was an absolute blast. And I will say that shout out to Nathaniel. He definitely helped me win in this situation. We had 2 packs on the line. So we got the 10 packs, 2 packs apiece, and we had 2 packs for the prizes on the line. And Nathaniel ended up helping me win that one and questing out on at 15 lore. So overall, great experience. Highly recommend. Pot of 4 is absolutely perfect for this pack rush experience.
Multiplayer pack rush coming to your intermissions near you, apparently. This sounds incredible. I would love to try it. I played multiplayer once and it was a blast. I would love to try this multiplayer pack rush because that is chaos incarnate. Thoughts, Mac, Connor?
Yeah, I think that, to be honest, I've never played multiplayer. I would love to get into it. I'm always game to try something new. I know. It's just I don't get too much time to get out there and try new things. And so whenever the opportunity presents itself, I'm just not there. And so I would love to get something set up, maybe at our next gathering to play test for set chance or something like that. We just bring some extra packs and we'll do some chaos. But it sounds like a blast. I think that anything where it takes Lorcana away from the, just the traditional 1v1, even just like playing like Palace Heist or Deep Trouble, like getting those kind of reps in, it's kind of fun. It just makes you think in a little bit different way. So I'm definitely down to try it. I just haven't had the opportunity. So I would love some introductions.
Yeah, for me it was. I'm with you, Connor. I have never played multiplayer, and I think it's something that I've always wanted to try, obviously. I don't know how I would do because it's just a way different mindset and trying to figure that out. Ironically, there are a couple good winter spell cards that make use of multiplayer. That being I think the 4-cost Uninkable Ruby, the Scrooge, I believe, seems to do pretty well in multiplayer.
Yeah, Scrooge.
So, yeah, it's something I want to try. It seems really fun, but I think it's one of those games. We do so much play testing online with each other. It's one of those where I feel like you need to be in person to really experience the true frenzy and fury that it seems to bring. Um, so, yeah, I would agree. Let's put it on our list for something to try the next time we have a couple minutes to work out a multiplayer pack rush. I think it's something that's worth exploring and giving it a shot for sure.
Let me wrap your head around this idea. How about multiplayer Infinity with your Ruby Sapphire deck that you love so dearly?
That would take about like 6 years, I think, considering how long Ruby Sapphire Infinity, how long those matches go. When Nathaniel and I tested the Ruby Sapphire prior to Milwaukee, it was like we got through one game and it took 45 minutes. One game, not match, one game. And the only reason it ended was because Nathaniel decked out. So it was that experience where I realized, and granted this was fabled, but where I realized that, oh geez, the Infinity DLC, I hope those players play fast because there's going to be a lot of control that's going to be present in this upcoming DLC in Indianapolis when it comes to Infinity for sure.
I will say for multiplayer, this is something that we regularly play at our local store, VB Games here in Northfield. We usually start out our Friday night locals with multiplayer while we're waiting for everyone to show up. And we all have our own multiplayer decks built out, and sometimes we'll play our regular core constructed. And it is always pure and utter chaos. And always good for a laugh. I do play the 4-cost Scrooge, and it's hilarious to quest and then draw 6 as everyone loses lore. But some of those stories that you get out of those experiences have been some of the defining moments in myself playing Lorcana. There was a moment where I was able to get out a Beast Relentless and an Arthur, and I cleared 20 characters in one turn. And it was just, I'm now always the threat, so everyone always attacks me, but it was well worth it. So whenever you have a chance, like take a couple minutes, set up a pod, do that multiplayer experience, because it'll always create those wonderful stories that we're so proud of when playing Lorcana, and it'll continue building this game into something we continue to love.
Love that.
To be fair, I would also be eternally targeting you if I got cooked by a Beast Relentless Arthur combo ever once in my life. So fair play to everybody that you play multiplayer with for just saying, Lance can't have fun today. He doesn't get to play any of his characters. Those are coming off the board as soon as they touch the board. So I support their efforts, to be fair.
Seems fair.
All right, well, y'all were talking, Nathaniel, a different Nathaniel's name kept coming up a few times when we were talking about the Frosty 500. I want to take this opportunity just to plug the upcoming weekend here in Minnesota, down in Mankato, Minnesota, something called Mankato Con. There's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday events for Lorcana if you're interested in joining and signing up and playing at any or all of those days. Saturday is a $1,000 prize pool. Friday is actually a multiplayer event. For those that are interested in trying out this multiplayer game mode, it is core constructed. It is not multiplayer pack rush. You do get to know the cards in your deck, so that is one bonus to the multiplayer core constructed event. And then Sunday, I forget what the details are there, but I know there is a Lorcana event on Sunday as well. So this upcoming weekend, March 20th, 22nd, Mankato Con down in Mankato, Minnesota. For anybody interested, feel free to check it out and go have a blast with some great players down in that area and from across the state of Minnesota and surrounding states even that are going to be joining in the festivities of Mankato Con and playing some very, very fun Lorcana this weekend. I will not be in attendance. I'm not sure if anybody on this call will be in attendance, but just wanted to plug it because we know the people that are organizing it, friends in the Minnesota community, and so we just wanted to make sure that we get the word out. All right, let's move now into giving Uncle Scrooge his flowers. So when rotation was coming around, we had Connor on the podcast, and he said something akin to the Ravensburger game creators, game designers are going to completely flip the script and change the ink identities simply because they heard the DuckTale Dads did a ink color series and they wanted to outdate that content immediately. So they did so, didn't they, fellas? So let's start with Ruby. Where are they now? What is the ink identity of Ruby? And is it viable? Mac, what do we think? You're the Ruby stan in the room. What do we got?
So the biggest thing they added with Ruby is singers, right? And that was right out of the gate with Fabled in the Powerline structure with Powerline himself. You had the Max Goof singer, and then the baby Powerline, I guess, the 2-cost one. And I don't know, it was really fun to see that. And then there was a lot of different synergies with other Goofy movie characters that dealt with being able to sing songs and seeing how that goes. I remember thinking about it, like thinking back 6 months ago when that was first introduced. I think that was the first time people were like truly, truly, truly excited to try out Ruby Emerald, because there was a lot of singers and then some potential synergies there with the songs that they had announced would be reprinted in Emerald. As well as the Max Goof Legendary as well. So in recycling those songs, turns out it wasn't the most viable option, as we now know. But that was kind of the first new main identity from pre-rotation to post-rotation, was that they introduced singers in a different ink color, which I think is great. I like that they're trying to branch out, break the mold, not necessarily making it the full identity, right? So amber tends to be, when you think of singers, that's the ink color that you think of typically when it comes to singers. But what I've enjoyed, and this, especially with now talking about singers and Ruby, from a broader perspective, I've enjoyed that they're starting to introduce little tidbits of ink identities into other ink combinations where we associate them as being a main identity in a single color, that being singers is one example. So, Connor, can you think of anything else besides the singers that you would notice from an identity perspective, or maybe highlight something in your playtesting that is still an identity from Ruby?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. When it comes to the ink identities, I don't think we've hit anywhere near how much of a change they're going to go through. It's almost as if it's like a watercolor, and like the ink is slowly dripping into another one. And I think Ryan alluded to this a couple episodes ago about how they're probably going to come back into more dual ink cards, which is very similar to see like, oh, you'll have a bodyguard, but it's sapphire steel rather than just steel. And so in theory, it's like, oh yeah, sapphire has a bodyguard, which is unlike its normal colors, which we'll get into some of those other inks later. But I think that with this upcoming couple of sets, Ruby is going to get more combinations, and I think more dual inks that start introducing other different categories and keywords into the Ruby mindset. Because previously, we've all known it. Ruby is just, banish, 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 and strength. And now it's just like, oh, other colors get those too, and we don't really get anything as Ruby. So it's been very interesting. I haven't seen too many Ruby decks, and again, I would love to see more of the force interaction with like maybe how a lot of the amethyst colored cards get the on-play effects exert certain characters. I mean, I think that would be great with Ruby because it forces the hand and forces the interactions and challenges and maybe gets it a little more viable. But as of right now, I don't think Ruby is super viable, outside of the demonic snowman. But I think that overall there's a lot to be spoken to about some of the keywords that could be coming to the new inks over the course of the next couple of sets. What do you think, Lance?
I'm really excited about the potential here because for a long time, there's been a lot of very glaring weaknesses in some of these color combinations. And when I think about Ruby, I think draw has been a huge, huge issue for Ruby and not really had that opportunity to get those draws. There's been a couple cards here and there, but with this latest set, it seems like they're actually trying to address that. With Graveyard of Christmas Future, Christmas Future, and then of course the new Scrooge McDuck. There's great opportunity here, and I'm really hoping that Ravensburger overall leans into this rather than kind of get scared away. We talked about the dual ink colors and kind of how that can play into how they're building this, and I really do hope that they're going to start bringing those back because I felt like it was a one and done at this point. but they can use this as a wonderful tool in expanding this game and fixing some of those glaring weaknesses, so that way we get a more well-rounded ink color overall, and makes the play much more enjoyable for everyone, and people can play the colors that they want to play and the inks that they want to play, right?
Very well said, Lance. My biggest takeaway for Ruby since rotation is it's the forgotten ink color, honestly. Recently, in Winterspell, though, I have seen some very interesting boost synergies in Amber Ruby decks that leverage Webby's Diary to draw a ton of cards by playing these absolute beefcakes of the 2-cost Scrooge and boosting it for 1 every turn, the 4/4 Aladdin and boosting it for 1 every turn, dropping a Scrooge's Counting House and boosting it and drawing, as well as increasing its willpower and lore gain, and don't want to turn anything sideways because you have like an 8/8 Scrooge sitting next to this Counting House that's getting 3 lore every turn. And it's like, okay, cool, I turned sideways, and now you banish my character, you boost again, you draw more cards, and now I'm like totally locked out of the game. So Amber Ruby, I think, is something that's interesting that has come to the forefront recently. I think Lucas Kaupa, I believe, was showcasing it at DLC Ghent, and he did very well on it. And so I think a lot of people have taken up the mantle and trying to solve that deck a little bit because there's a lot of potential there. But for the most part, Ruby has not been a huge, impactful part of the meta, especially compared to where it was pre-rotation, where it was like the main pillar of the meta. Everything revolved around how do you play around Be Prepared? Do you beat it? Do you get under it and get to 20 lore before they are able to play it, or do you have to figure out a game plan to play both before and after Be Prepared and be able to play both sides of that coin? And so now it's just kind of like forgotten. They're trying to give it some removal, but I think Ravensburger game designers are a little bit hesitant to give it too much because they don't want it to just completely take over and wipe the entire meta out from underneath itself as a result of it. So things like 5-cost uninkable Grab Your Bow, theoretically pretty strong. I mean, it can potentially banish up to 2 things. It deals well with small characters, so you can't really get underneath it. The Headless Horseman obviously is a great card. Low willpower, uninkable 5-cost again. So like a lot of good tools, but everything that comes out in Ruby seems to be uninkable and high cost. So how do you make it all fit is a big problem. But for the most part, I think Ruby has been somewhat forgotten in post-rotation era. I am hopeful that Connor is correct and that it's going to progress and they're going to get more tools and they're going to become, Ruby is going to become a very relevant in color in the next couple of sets. But I will hold judgment until further notice to be able to actually see what those cards are before saying that Ruby is officially back. Mac, what do you have?
Yeah, I think you nailed it right on the head there when it comes to all the really good cards are uninkable. And I think that just goes to the frustration that people have been feeling about Ruby. I mean, there are good cards there, like the Headless Horseman from Whispers. Grab Your Bow has a lot of potential. The new Rush Maui from this last set, I think people were initially excited about, but it's like they're trying to grasp what was really, really good about Ruby pre-rotation and trying to have some sort of a semblance of that, but a lot weaker. And primarily that weakness is becoming uninkable cards, and you can only play so many in your deck. The one thing pre this specific set with Winterspell, the one identity that I noticed was lacking in Ruby that I really wish was missed was the fact that Ruby tended to be that rush color. And after rotation, a lot of those significant rush cards were out, that being the Super Goof, obviously Maui Hero to All. We still did have that 5-cost uninkable Ruby, or Goof, that was 5/5 evasive and rush, but at the same time, it was another uninkable slot that had to take up in your deck. And then the other point I wanted to make, or last 2 points, is the one card that everyone was really excited about continuing in rotation. I think if you were to make a top 5 list going into Fabled, everyone was going to put Maui Half Shark on that list. They were so excited to continue playing Maui Half Shark and the potential to see what this card could do. And that card has been almost non-existent now. people are trying to have it make a comeback now that Winter Spell has been released. But to your point, it's just anything Ruby is not good, and therefore Maui Half Shark is not good, and that's just a year of wasted potential in that card, which is a little frustrating. But lastly, last point I want to make is I think my kind of, what's the way you put it, Ryan? The tinfoil hat theory is I think now that rotation has happened, it has exposed truly how weak Ruby has been from the beginning because it's been hidden behind a card like Be Prepared. The fact that it has no card draw, and the only reason that people were truly playing Ruby was getting to that Be Prepared or the big Sisu, but Sisu was more viable because you had shift targets, right? But like everyone was so excited about Be Prepared, and I think without that card specifically, and the fact that this ink combination traditionally has had no card draw, it has been hidden by that specific card, and other combinations like Ruby Sapphire of old and Ruby Amethyst has hidden and made that ink color seem a lot stronger pre-rotation than I think it actually truly was because of Be Prepared. So I hope they release some good cards like Grab Your Bow and have them be inkable. Like you just need one or two of those, because then I think people would be more inclined to play in this ink color. I know, Lance, you might have had another thought with Ruby.
Yeah, so we kind of mentioned pre-rotation, but I will say there have been flashes. During last set championship season, it felt like, especially up here in the cities, that Ruby Amethyst was running the table when it came to winning set championships. I myself won on Ruby Amethyst, and I'm not normally a Ruby player. We had Nathaniel win one on Ruby Amethyst, and a couple other players throughout the cities that were kind of going through and playing. Yes, purple. Purple was a great supporting, or Amethyst was a great supporting color, right? And those Demonas really helped us draw, but Ruby was really effective at boosting that Amethyst color. So there have been flashes here and there. So I think that we are on the verge. We just have to get the right cards and the right combination. And hot take, I think as we go into set championship season, I think that we will see a Ruby Amethyst rise to the top and be competitive coming up in the next couple weeks.
I think that's a great hot take. I really do think Ruby Amethyst still is very, very impactful. Has a lot of great tools, and I think it could really make a storm come set championship season. One last point about Ruby before we move on to the next ink color I want to talk about. What I think the biggest change with Ruby has been, that I think more about it, and you mentioned Ruby Amethyst, is that the Ruby players of old, of pre-rotation, were these like big ugly control players, big ugly control deck players that just wanted to like suffocate the game and win by like through attrition. And the Ruby of new is a little bit more on the aggressive side, so it's a totally different play style than pre-rotation Ruby lended itself to. And so I think that's been a big challenge as well, is that it's a different group of players that need to pick up that need to pick up the color, or those players that used to play control decks need to now play more aggressive decks and have less of that like suffocating board control and more of the like, I'm just going to ask the questions, and if you don't have the answers, then I win, like no matter what happens. So I think that's been one of the other major changes that's, I think, somewhat hidden Ruby in the background as a result of it, just because the Ruby players, anyone that was more on more of an aggressive deck pre-rotation, wasn't really looking at Ruby as an aggressive option post-rotation, just because it was probably the color they hated the most, to be quite honest with you, from pre-rotation experiences. If you're playing an aggro deck and you came up against anything Ruby, you probably were just sad and crying on your way home from an 0-3 event. But that being said, now I think that we're starting to see it come a little bit more into the fold. There's the opportunity to have it be a little bit more suffocating with this Amber Ruby deck that's out there, and other Ruby variants on the near horizon. I'm sure you saw Ruby Sapphire at the Frosty 500 mech. So I think it's just around the corner. Next ink I want to talk about, though, fellas, Amber. Apparently Amber is now our big removal color. So what's going on there? Connor, start us off.
Yeah, it's so funny because during the Ink Identity series that you had done, we were talking about, singers and support and healing, and it's so great. Rapunzel will remove damage, it'll be so sweet and so nice. And now it's like Horseman strikes, raging storm, and everything is just banished, banished, banished. World's greatest criminal mastermind. It's like, wow, what happens? Like we just went from super sweet Amber to just like, no, everyone's got to be banished, and it's just no one is safe. It is so great, and I think this opens up the door to so many different inks having these extra keywords that just get slid in over the course of one or two sets, and all of a sudden, like you see an amber amethyst deck list is just like absolutely controls the board because it has the evasive answers. And so it's so fun to see the transition from old to new, especially since we've been here for a fair amount of time. But gosh, it has taken a turn, and I gotta say I like it. The 8 cost uninkable makes it seem as if the only viable deck is your amber sapphires, but as you mentioned, there are some amber ruby decks that do get up there as well. So I think that it's great. I love the changes, and I'm looking forward to more.
And so what do you have to say about amber now all of a sudden being this aggressive, angry board clear color?
I have a couple friends on that I play with on Pixelborn and do live cams that are trying to make amber work with amethyst specifically, and kind of playing this mid-range, like control the board early, get up to that board wipe, let them overcommit, and then just destroy their life. And it feels real bad when it happens because there's no way of recovering. So kind of this changing ink identity. And Amber was never something that I played a lot of. I was never a Steel Song player. I did Lemon Lime very, very early on. But it was that aggro, like I'm going to get up to 19 lore and then get crushed by Ruby Amethyst. And so it was something that I kind of moved off of fairly quickly. And seeing this changing ink identity definitely kind of gives me pause and makes me really think about what I can do as a player to become better and play some of these colors. And just watching some of these combinations of cheating out Mufasa a little bit early, or Simba a little bit early, and then boosting him and then cheating out another character is just kind of insane to me, and something I never thought of before and never thought Amber was capable of, right? So seeing this removal, seeing these big characters, big bodies on board is just something that I'm still wrapping my head around, and something I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, I think with Amber, what I've liked the Ravensburger in kind of this new wave of identities, right? We alluded to it before, like they're still at the core, each color still has its main thing. And with Amber, it was always the color that just get as many characters out on the board as possible, and you have a lot of synergies with that being Surfer Stitch, which was reprinted, and then now the new Snowboarder Stitch, which benefit with having characters on the board. And I like the fact that they're continuing to have those core identities but branching out, right? It just so happens that this branch out, to our point, is just let's just clear the board. I myself played a lot of characters, but I don't care. I need to reset the board, and then I'll just play a ton more, right? So that's kind of been the new identity of Amber in my kind of very simple synopsis, but I like it. I think it's fun. Amber, to your point, Lance, too, is a color I really never played, even in the days of Rapunzel. I never played Amber, and I'm liking, kind of dipping my toes in some new ink combinations, and maybe that was their point the whole time with introducing these new identities come the rotation. So that's my thoughts on Amber.
Mac, you make a great point there of like maybe this was the point the whole time, was to say you can have a play style you enjoy, but it's not going to be in the same colors the entire time, because now you get to experience different inks, experience the little niche things that each of those different inks gets to do, while still having your board clear that you so love and adore. So if you really want to play that board clear, then you have to play Amber, but now it's a new color you get to explore that you probably didn't play before because you were just beating up on all the Amber decks with your board clear and Ruby. The next color is Mac's other favorite color, Sapphire, where you can ramp more than you ever may want or need to in your entire life with Jiminy Cricket and Belle and Cinderella and Moana and Sail and Tipo and Spooky Sight and Sudden Scare and what else is there? How many other ways can one ramp in this deck? Please enlighten us.
They just don't have the ramp item in Fishbone Quill anymore. That's really what they're missing. But other than that, it truly is. Obviously, the core identity is still ramp, but I think they've really pressed the gas on ramping your opponent too, with all the other cards that you mentioned, with Sudden Scare and Spooky Sight and whatnot, assisting your opponent in ramping. What's one thing that I've noticed besides the ramp with this color is spot removal is something that we've talked about before, like Into the Unknown, the reprinted Let It Go, you have Hades. The main difference between Sapphire, though, is this is spot removal to assist your opponent's inkwell, whereas Ruby is spot removal that just is flat banish, right? So that's kind of the biggest difference that I see with Sapphire. But truly, the identity here is ramp, and it is the ultimate and continues to be the ultimate support color to whatever ink you pair it up with. And that's what I view blue at, and now and forever, I think, is what blue is going to be. Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, you mentioned the spot removal with like Into the Unknown or the reprint of Let It Go. I don't know if it was game 2 or game 3 of the DLC Type A final, but I think it was Ed had just laid down just a ton of characters, 2 Donald Duck, Perfect Gentlemen's, Annie Shift and Clarabelle. And then his opponent triple Into the Unknown, hard cast, boom, just done. 9 ink was used, and now all of a sudden Ed had an extra 4 ink into his inkwell the next turn. It's just incredible. I absolutely loved it. But it's so crazy, as Ryan alluded to, it's like, yeah, you'll get the removal, you get the inkwell, but now it's just also going to be benefiting your opponent so much. And so some of these games get outrageous. I play tested with Nathaniel the other day. He was running Blurple or your Sapphire Amethyst, and I was running Emerald Sapphire. And at the end of the game, I think we both had 18 to 20 plus inkwell. It's unbelievable. It's just so crazy. And so it's just I think that something needs to be adjusted there, to be honest. These monstrous inkwells are crazy. Maybe Ink Geyser is going to become more prevalent, but again, it's landlocked into just Emerald Sapphire. But we'll see. I think there are going to be some more inkwell reducing cards in the next couple of sets, but we'll see. I don't know. What do you think, Lance?
Well, as a Purple Steel player, I personally love when someone Spooky Sights me, because I just dock into 2 more characters and to dock into 2 more characters, and I just get a full board again. It feels great. So like overall, like I'm right there with you. I think like providing those resources for your opponent, depending on what they're on, can be detrimental to your own success. And so leaning into the future ink reduction, I think, is a great path that I would love to see, because as of right now, giving your opponent that much ink helps them become successful. And I see more people winning when they have those expansive inkwells, because eventually the Sapphire player will run out of options, will run out of things that they can do to impact your board. And you're just going to keep drawing up, especially if you're playing against an Amethyst player. Mac.
One thing I appreciate, though, with Sapphire, in the sense of like what's new about this ink color, this is, I feel like, the ink color that's truly explored other keywords more so than any other ink. That being like detectives, like that's pretty viable in this. And then now princesses with Cinderella and Moana. We're getting a lot of those subtext type of decks, and I think I see it most in Sapphire, and something that I've appreciated and noticed, especially over the course of the last 2 sets with Whispers and Winterspell. The fact that Ravensburger seems to try and push people to certain subtext combinations. I think that's really cool. I really like that lore, no pun intended, that they're trying to do with the game, in addition to just making this game fun.
You brought up a great point in the extra identifiers, if you will, on the cards, and the extra keywords that they're exploring, and I think you're exactly right. Sapphire is definitely exploring those, and I wanted to harken back to what you said in your original statement about Sapphire, Mac, and that it's the ultimate support color. And I would support that statement by saying, yes, Sapphire probably does have the greatest number of characters with the word support on it. So yes, It is definitely the best support color out there. But moving on. All right, next ink color, Amethyst, where Sapphire says ramp as much as you can and more than you ever want to. Amethyst says draw cards more ways than you can ever want to or need to. So much so that you could easily deck yourself out if you played every single card that said draw a card that is printed in Amethyst. If you played mono Amethyst, you could probably deck yourself out by turn 12 if you had the right board state in play. So, how do we feel about Amethyst? We've talked about it at length in different podcasts that we've put out recently, and that potentially maybe there's an Amethyst problem. I, for one, will say no, there's no Amethyst problem, because I, for one, really love drawing cards, and I think that's a great way to play trading card games, because you get to see more of the cards you want to play with. So I love Amethyst as a color, and I love the identity they're giving to it. I like that they're printing a lot of answers to the previously very strong cards, a la Genie, Hello Horseman Strikes, Hello Grab Your Bow, and Under the Sea, and what else is there out there? Plenty of things. So I like that they're trying to like warp around that a little bit and make sure that some of those cards are a little bit less good than they were previously, but at the same time making sure that they're still like viable. And obviously if you draw a card, you still feel okay about that interaction. So Lance, how do you feel about Amethyst? I know you play a lot of Amethyst Steel, and you mentioned drawing a card, dropping a dock, playing more characters, drawing more cards. So is Amethyst changing at all, and is there truly an Amethyst problem?
I don't believe so, but that's because I love Amethyst just like you. I think one of the big things there is that for a long time, especially during the pre-rotation, a lot of the deck identity was about bouncing. And for a couple sets there, we kind of got away from that, and we're starting to see that again, which I really appreciate that with Tigger, bouncing back your own characters to get more draw. I think draw still continues to be that identity, but then we're also leaning into a little bit of removal, right? So the two big cards that I think they are top of mind for that removal are Hades, decking your opponent's card, and then of course build a snowman. Trying to lean into that additional removal, which I think that Amethyst overall had a removal issue. Didn't really have that option. So adding that in there is great, but it still continues to be that draw ink color. That color that you're going to play that Demona and draw 3 because you already dumped your hand. And it's something that I will love to see some additional removal come out of. But overall, I think they're also adding a little bit more bounce here and there to that deck to bring back some of its former identity as well.
I'm sick of Amethyst, and it's been well documented on how I feel about Amethyst and how strong it is. I just think with Amethyst, and I'll keep it short, it's just a lot of the strongest face value keywords like evasives and stuff like that, it just so happens to be paired up with the ink combination that is draw a lot of cards, right? I would say if you take out some of the sets 5 through 8 cards and you think about just the cards that have been released post-rotation, I actually like the way they're trying. Sure, Amethyst is still the draw color, and I get that, but I like the way that they're trying to add draw in different ways. You mentioned Demona. Like, you first have to dump your hand to make sure Demona works, right? Or you have, like, Dumbo. Sure, you can exert, it's evasive, you can draw a card and gain a lore, but with new alert keywords, and relatively speaking, it's only a 3/3 body, like, there are ways to remove it pretty quickly, right? So like these newer cards make sense, but when paired up to sets 5 through 8, it's just crazy how strong Amethyst can be. But I don't know. I don't think Amethyst is going anywhere until rotation number 2, and then we'll see how things adjust, right? But I think, like I said, I think one thing to have it draw a lot of cards, but the fact that it's now like the evasive color more so than any other color now, and there's so much synergy for a keyword that is at face value already very strong, I think is what has a lot of people frustrated. Lance, I see you laughing at me. What else you got for me?
Amethyst has also leaned to a different identity for the color, and I think it's also the expensive ink color to play at this point. So a lot of us have tried to find some of these cards at a great cost to our wallets to be competitive. So it is kind of leaned into that identity a little bit.
You're not wrong.
Yeah,
Connor, what you got?
That's very true.
You know what? I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I'm over it. I'm ready for something else. I'm done. Is it broken? I don't know. But am I over it? 100%. Ready for something new. I'm tired of hearing, oh, this deck is great. Oh, it's Amethyst and what? That's all you need to say. Is Amethyst and what else? Amethyst and what else? That's it.
I will go back to my previous point that drawing cards is a great way to design a trading card game and to be fun. People want to play with the cards in their deck. If you can't draw those cards, you can't play the deck. So I think Amethyst will be going nowhere. I'm sorry to say. Even post-rotation 2, I think Amethyst is going nowhere. There's going to be plenty of card draw reprinted or newly printed in sets 12 and 13 to supplement what will be lost from sets 5 through 8, where Amethyst is going to still be a very major component of the meta because competitive card game players like drawing cards. And Amethyst draws cards more efficiently and effectively than every other color out there. You pay 3 to draw 2 is like market rate for Amethyst. In other colors, like Webby's, I mentioned Webby's Diary earlier as an Amber Ruby option. You're paying the boost cost and another ink every single time you draw a card with Webby's Diary. So effectively you're paying 1 to draw 1 or paying 2 to draw 1 at lowest rate because you have to boost to get it done unless you have some sort of like boost cheat effects. But then you're still paying the ink of those cards in order to draw your cards with Webby's Diary. So there's nothing that draws cards more efficiently, except maybe Ohana Means Family if you play into it, than the Amethyst ink color. And I do think that Amethyst will be going nowhere. So I'm sorry to say, Mac and Connor, but I really hope you're wrong. That I really hope I'm right, that Amethyst is here to stay forever and ever and ever. And even when they start printing more dual ink colors, well, now I'm just going to draw 3 off of or draw 4 even off of my Colors of the Wind. So I'm still going to draw incredibly efficiently as an Amethyst player in every Amethyst deck that I play, because now Colors of the Wind is a 4-cost inkable song. How much more efficient can you get for a card to draw cards for you? So you're going to get sick of seeing Colors of the Wind or hearing this character sings Colors of the Wind, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to say, that's not a Pocahontas character, they can't sing that song, when you're playing against Amethyst decks in the future. Think about Purple Hades singing Colors of the Wind and how scratchy that vocal would be. Regardless, it's still going to happen, and so I just buckle up, fellas. It's gonna be out there.
I'm not saying I want it to leave. I'm not saying I want Amethyst card draw to leave. It just needs to be well managed. I get that it will be the card draw color. It just needs to be tempered a little bit, because right now it's just overflowing with too much.
Give us more.
That's all I got.
Give us more.
Please let me deck myself out. I want to play 4 second stars, 4 guidebooks, 4 colors, 4 genies, 4 Dumbos. I want to play it all.
Alternate win condition. We deck ourselves out, we actually win the game.
They'll print
They
a
might
card
need
that
a
says
new
that
mechanic
before.
like that at this rate.
Yeah, before long they'll print that as a card. All right, so the anti-everything color then, in my mind, Emerald. Let's talk about Emerald. I still think it's the copycat. I've called it the parasite color in the past because it takes the advantages your opponent tries to create in the game and flips it on its head and turns it into your advantage. Thinking cards like the Big Clarabelle, which turns your opponent's card advantage into your card advantage. You think about the Hey Hey or the Webby, the legendary from last set, turns your opponent's ink advantage into your ink advantage. I think that Emerald is arguably the highest skill level ink color, just because of all these like niche interactions and odd mechanics to try to wrap your head around and try to maximize. And I think it's going to continue to be that because every trading card game needs something like that to have develop this level of mastery for its players. And I think because of the way that Emerald has functioned in the past and continues to function in the cards that they print, there's usually some pretty steep trade-offs to some of the cards that they play, or there's a lot of options on the Emerald cards that are out there too, to allow for this kind of skill to be expressed through use of those cards. do you all feel like Emerald has changed much since rotation, and where do you think it might be going, and how do you feel Emerald is as in terms of a card color or an ink color? Connor, go ahead and kick us off
Yeah,
again.
I feel yes. I feel as though I've played a fair amount of Emerald decks. You know, it's a little biased. It's my favorite color, but at the same time, I think that I've been able to witness some of these changes, like you're mentioning, with the Webby being able to leech off of the ramp, and then your Clarabelle being able to leech off of the card draw. And then with the printing of Malicious, Mean, and Scary, great song, by the way, now it has its own version of a more efficient board wipe. And so it always had Under the Sea, but then we have Malicious, Mean, and Scary being like changing the verbiage of cards. Like, oh, you put damage on these characters rather than deal damage. And so I think that since rotation, it's gotten a little bit more viable in aggression because of the Prince Philip combinations. But I think that one of my predictions is, as I was kind of preparing for this episode, was looking into the Pixar, from the next set. I think that we've seen some like cards already revealed, such as like there's a Buzz that is a Emerald card. I think that one of the things that Emerald doesn't have is that they're going to have more of like bodyguards within Emerald over the course of the next set. We're going to have like Buzz Lightyear coming in as like a bodyguard, like a 2/5 or something along those lines, or like or maybe like a combination of support in Emerald with like some sort of. I would love to see an extended art Slinky, where he's like his back half is one card and his front half is the other card. How great would that be? But at the same time, I think that over the course of the next couple of sets, they're going to start dropping these little extra pieces of the keywords into the other areas, and I think it's going to be great. I love Emerald. I think it's going to be even better this coming next set, and I think that it's going to start dripping into other categories as well when it comes to like the leech effects, as you mentioned, Ryan.
Yeah, I'll go next here. With Emerald, I think to your point, Ryan, you nailed it on the head with still the copycat. And I think that's what it always wants to be. I like to call it the Tempo Killer card, or the Tempo Killer ink color. Oh, sorry, this is Lorcana, the Tempo Banisher card. So that's what Emerald will continue to be, is just messing with your opponent's tempo in a very simplistic way. And that's something that I'm not good at. Call back to my Milwaukee experience. But Emerald is so hard to play, at least for me personally. It is. I truly feel that skill cap that you mentioned, Ryan. Like, there's so much that you have to be aware of because it, in essence, pulls identities from almost every other ink color. Therefore, you need to be somewhat versed in what those other inks do in order to be successful at what Emerald wants to do, to kind of take advantage of that. And so there's a lot more kind of base knowledge and foundational knowledge you need in order to play Emerald, in my opinion. Ironically, when we talked about Amber and Raging Storm and board wipes, Emerald actually has more of them with the Prince Philip as well as the Under the Sea, but it's just not as clean. There's definitely more setup for Emerald when it comes to those board wipes. But yeah, I think Emerald will continue to be the messing with tempo, or at least that's something that's continued to be one of its main identities, while sprinkling in more of that copycat mechanic, pulling more identities from other inks. And I really enjoyed that, and it's kind of a fun, although I'm not good at it, it's a fun kind of difference compared to any other ink combination. Lance, what do you got?
I think Emerald has struggled a little bit with its identity post-rotation. I think early on it was firmly into the like kind of discard. And I think everyone realized that playing discard is just not fun for whoever's sitting on the opposite end of the table. And as the resident Bucky player at our local store back in the day, I was having a blast, and no one else was. And so, like, I own that. I definitely do. But I think that they've tried to throw a lot of darts at the board to try to reestablish that. And it's coming in a couple different ways. So the first way I think of is this new identity for Emerald is the the color of choice, the ink of choice. And you look at some of these new cards and a couple of the cards from the past sets, and you play this card and you have 3 different choices you can choose from. And we've already seen some releases of these new characters coming out. Specifically, Buzz comes to mind, where it's you play this card and during your turn you can either do pay 2 ink, do this thing, or pay 2 ink, do this thing. And I think that they're trying to lean into that, as well as leaning into the, hey, let's try to get as much lore as we can. And the Mulan is kind of top of mind for me right now, because I just played a deck and got crushed by it, where they were boosting up Mulan, questing for 6, playing You Came Back, questing for 6 again, and then go-going something to gain an additional, 4, which was absolutely insane. And so kind of those different ways where they can sneak lore in, and I think is the best way to describe it. And that evolving ink identity, those are the 2 things that really come to my mind more recent when trying to continue to build upon the current ink color.
Lance, I think you brought up a very important point for Emerald that I did not think about till now when you're talking about the Mulan combo, and that Connor mentioned it as well with the Malicious Mean and Scary Prince Philip, which is a combo of cards that's needed to be played in a certain sequence in order to have a huge impact on the board. Where Emerald seems to be this combination color, right? A lot of what Emerald likes to do is in combination of things, in a specific sequence of cards being played in order to have a massive impact on the game. Whereas a lot of the other colors don't necessarily have that same level of combination effects. There's some here and there, but not to the same level that it seems like Emerald has. So I would also add that to the Emerald identity of being the combination card in color. So if you like playing combinations of cards, you like waiting to do the thing just once per game, whether it wins you the game or not, you get to do the thing, and that's success in itself, then Emerald is the color for you, for sure. So then, one last ink color to cover, unless Ravensburger in the next 2 minutes drops a new ink color on us. Steel. Steel is the beefcake color in my mind. It's got the big beefy bodies, the high strength, high willpower. For some reason, you can print a 4/5 now as a 3-cost character. It's a 2/5 with Challenger 2. That seems fair. Only in steel, and also affectionately called the pew pew color. Where Lance likes to play his favorite card in the entire universe, Dump Truck, to pew pew, deal 1 damage to something. Cards like Fire the Cannon, cards like Angel Experiment 624, throwing snowballs all over the place now, turning every single card in your deck into a Fire the Cannons. And if you have multiple Angels out, then you get to throw multiple snowballs each turn. And if your opponent's only able to play 1 character, then you probably get to clear it. So that's fun. And so that's what I think of Steel as, is this pew pew and beefcake color. In addition to some, of the clean removal options for other parts of the game, locations and items specifically. How do y'all feel about Steel currently? Is it strong? Is it not strong? Is it consistent? Is it not consistent? Connor, let's start with you.
I think you did a great, introduction to it. I think it's great. I think steel is strong. It's a good supplementary color. I think it could get stronger, in my opinion. And I think, again, with my predictions from the last couple of sets where we're going to start seeing some different keywords bleed into other inks, we're going to see with the introduction of Brave, which is medieval Scottish, that is screaming steel to me. I think that with Brave being introduced, there is some magic within Brave. So maybe we see some amethyst keywords kind of sliding into the steel area. We start seeing some different actions and on-play effects. But I definitely think that steel can afford to be a little bit stronger over the course of the next set or two. But again, I think it's a great supplementary color as is. I don't think it's nearly as sad as Ruby currently, but it definitely is a fun color to play. I want to play it more. I wish that there were better options to kind of combo it. I mean, Amethyst Steel, obviously Lance is going to chew my ear off for saying that there's not a lot of great options to play, but I think that I think that there's definitely some opportunity for growth, and we're going to see that over the course of the next set.
So might we see damage movement making its way into Steel? That's something to chew on and think about as we go. I think that would be kind of neat and kind of cool. Amber Steel, Connor, is a very viable ink color. Sapphire Steel, I think Mac would have something to say that is a viable ink color. there's a contingent of Ruby Steel players I've seen at set championships from Whispers in the Well that would very much argue that Ruby Steel is around and a force to be reckoned with. Especially if you have a lot of Amber Emerald Dogs players in your meta, they would be quaking in their boots if they saw Ruby Steel players sit down across the table from them. Am I missing something? Can't be Steel.
Very fair.
Emerald
Very
Steel.
fair. I
That's
stand
okay.
corrected.
That's okay. Emerald Steel can be gone. That's okay. Lance, what's up?
So I think Steel has probably changed the least since rotation. And I think it's a really strong support color without the support keyword, right? It's a great complement to a lot of other colors. What does it have, right? It has the pew-pews, which are great. It has, I think, one of the most consistent draw cards in the game in Doc. It has some great alert characters, which was a cool keyword that was introduced to kind of handle those evasive threats. But those are all great cards to play as a companion to other colors, and it's really changed the least. And I would love to see some things come down the pipeline, and something that I've seen with a couple decks that I've played online against on Pixelborn was locations. I think Steel has some of the strongest locations out there as of right now when you're thinking about Seven Dwarfs Mine, or Seven Dwarfs Mine. And I've seen some people playing some Castle Wyvern, maybe some Zootopia, and I would love to see some location decks come into the meta. And I know we're trying to lean into this location thing, and Ruby tends to be kind of owning it. And again, maybe a great companion color with those Elsas and with those other different cards. But I think Steel still needs to identify as something more than it is. Resist, pew-pews, a little bit of draw, but that's about it.
Connor and Lance took the two main points straight out of my mouth that I was going to say for Steel. I totally agree with you, Lance, that Steel is the color that has changed the least since rotation and its previous identity. And as a result of that, I also agree with you, Connor, that Steel, I think, is the second worst ink color right now. Like, still miles above Ruby, but it's Ruby and then it goes Steel, because I think there are too many other options in all the other ink colors, whereas Steel is just, you place a couple damage, it has some gargoyles, it has some alert, and it just, that's all it feels like to me in a very simplistic way. I truly don't feel that Steel is that strong as much as I enjoy Sapphire Steel. I think Sapphire enables the really good Steel cards to come out, and I think that's the same thing with Amethyst, and those are two of the better colors right now in the meta right now are Sapphire and Amethyst. It's kind of ironic. Pre-rotation, I think if you asked anyone, 80% of them, especially set 8, were saying that Steel was the strongest color. And now post-rotation, I think where it's at now, I just don't feel the same way. I think because there are so many more ways to get around it, I think the thing that scared a lot of people previously was resist. And now there are so many ways of moving damage, putting damage, like all these strong resist characters that were very hard to remove. It's not as hard to remove them anymore. We talk about spot removal, things of that nature. So, but the other thing about Steel, though, that I do enjoy, after I've been kind of harping on it for a little bit here, is that Steel, I think, is another one of those inks that leans into the subtext. We see a lot more ally builds, for example, but it's also one that leans into more franchises. That being Mulan is a very popular franchise within Steel and somewhat viable in the Ruby Steel deck. It's not the strongest one by any means, but like you see franchises come out of Steel more than most other ink colors, in my opinion. But lastly, and to your point, Lance, about Doc, I mean, Doc has been really good as the refueling card for Steel. Since rotation, I feel like they've truly started leaning into that type of kind of draw identity for Steel, which was previously was only Doc. Sure, set 8, we got Beyond the Horizon, which is another one of that refueling card. But then we're starting to see it now. Obviously, Goliath is another big main staple in that. And getting some different synergies with the refueling effect. That being Angel it takes really good advantage of that. If you have a Goliath and Angel on board, you refill your hand, and then you have that hand to throw more snowballs, right? So I think that's kind of what I've noticed is that playing on the edge, getting rid of all of your cards to then utilize the refueling effect with something like Doc, Goliath, or Beyond the Horizon, that's something I've noticed with Steel. And I know I'm getting a lot of probably disappointed or weird and counterpoint faces from Ryan. So Ryan, I want you to kind of push back because I feel like you think Steel is a really strong color right now.
I am just baffled that you called Steel the second worst color. I'm surprised that you think that there's a clear hierarchy where I would agree that Ruby is the weakest color because it is least represented. There's like a couple of different deck types that are taking hold, but it's not well represented across the board. But I truly don't see a difference between the other 5 ink colors in terms of strength or viability, because I think that Steel has a lot of power built into it, baked into it, and a lot of synergistic power and baked into it too. I don't know if you've ever sat across a table from a Francine sitting there staring you down and with their giant elephant trunk and their 4/3 resist 1, but that is a terrifying body to try to face down with anything that you have on board, because it's probably trading most of the stuff. The other thing is Doc, being a tent pole in every Steel list, really has given life to a lot of different Steel builds, Steel options, Steel archetypes. Obviously, it's a 4 of in just about every single Steel list, even the ones that it probably shouldn't be, because it's just so good and so efficient at card draw. But things like there's a new Amber Steel that's coming that Sky won CCS Houston with, that obviously played Docs and obviously played the quintessential removal songs with He Hurled His Thunderbolt now post-rotation and Strength of a Raging Fire. And I don't know if you've ever played against an Amber Steel list that was able to, in their top 15 cards, obviously this is a high roll and it's like one-off, they hit everything they needed to, but they sang 3 He Hurled His Thunderbolts, 2 Strength of a Raging Fire, and 3 Akuta Moody's in their first like 15 to 20 cards. I didn't have any chance in that game. No matter what color I was playing or what cards I put down, they were getting removed. And now they got Angel to add to this like incremental damage dealing, where if you have an Angel sing Hero to Thunderbolt and toss the next card at whatever character you just sang it on, you can deal 6 damage or something, which is a substantial amount and removes just about everything that doesn't have Ward in the game. I guess maybe Vincenzo survives as another Steel option, but like everything else is getting zapped by this combination. So I think that Steel is still very strong. It's still very efficient and effective at removing threats from the board through damage dealing. And if there's ways you can skirt that through ward and resist and other ways to try to prevent damage from being dealt. But at the same time, I don't think that Steel is like hands down the second worst ink color out there. I think that I agree completely that it feels like it's the least changed, since it just has this very clear identity of dealing direct damage and dumping as many cards as possible to refuel on an empty hand. I was just baffled to hear that you said that you think Steel is the second worst color, especially because I feel like you've been playing a lot of Sapphire Steel recently, and it feels like it might be a new favorite of yours for the upcoming Set Champ season. So that's just where my facial expressions were coming from, because I was clearly very surprised at this outrageous remark that Steel is clearly the second worst ink color out there.
Yeah, well, I guess from my perspective, like Ruby's, I think universally viewed as like not the strongest, and then it's all the rest of the 5. But then when you compare the rest of the 5, I think Steel is the lowest one of those 5. I think the reason being is you think of the best cards in the game right now, using those 5, discard Ruby for this argument. Like, I think it has the least staple cards compared to the other ink combinations, because Amber, you have the Raging Storms, you have the Surfer Stitch that's really hard to remove, you have what else is going on? World's Greatest Criminal Mind. You have whatever that other removal evasive card is, right? Like evasive song. And you got Ohana Means Family. Obviously, there's all the amethyst colors that are legendary and very expensive, as Lance alluded to. You think about Emerald, you have Clarabelle, you have Prince Philip, and then for Sapphire, you have the Hades, the Let It Go, you have the ramp cards. Like, all of those seem like more staple and more viable in the current meta than the best Steel cards when you compare those. So I guess that's just my perspective on it. I love playing steel, especially if you get the right princess combination deck. And I really like the allies version too, because I think those subtext keywords play off really well when specifically in Sapphire Steel. Maybe that's why I like the combination so much, because I like utilizing those subtexts, right? So, but in terms of if you just look at it solely by itself, I think other colors have more to go for them than steel does.
You have a fair point there. I can't argue that. I think there is definitely quantity and quality in the other ink colors that steel simply does not have at the same level. If I compare like apples to apples, to be fair, I think Doc is probably top of my list in terms of meta viable cards and best cards out there, just because it's so efficient. You get a 1/3 that quests for 1. You get to draw 2 cards for free most times because you're able to play around it, and the deck is designed to do so. Lance mentioned dock chaining basically early, or dock training, if you will, where you dock into another character and another dock, and then another character and another dock, and then you'll like all of a sudden have 5 characters on board. I think that's one of the most powerful things any deck could ever do. Obviously, it takes a level of luck to have that happen, but at the same time, I think that Doc is at the top of my list in terms of power level. But after that, if I compare any other ink color and the quantity of cards that are high quality compared to the quantity of steel cards that are high quality, I will agree with your point there. So thank you for enlightening me. I always like learning something new, and I hadn't thought about this before. Fellas, anything else to bring up about the steel ink color or any other ink color before we start closing out? All right. Well, I do want to give Connor an opportunity to give shout-outs to whomever, whatever you would like to. So Lance, let the people know if they can find you somewhere else, or if there's anyone you want to give a shout-out to as we start wrapping up.
Well, as always, giving a shout-out to the community that we have here. We have an amazing community here in Minnesota, and so much that we have people traveling in from Iowa and the states around us to come to our events, and we absolutely love it. And if anyone is willing to make that drive and come visit us here in wonderful snowy Minnesota, feel free. This is the best community that I've been a part of, and I absolutely think it's amazing. The tournament that we had, AJ and Ellie, of course, helping run that, was an amazing experience as always. And then, of course, to y'all for inviting me on the pod again. I truly enjoy these sit downs with y'all to get together with some like-minded individuals, some parents, right? And actually sit down and socialize about the card game that we love so much. That being said, I'm super excited to see everyone throughout set championship season and get a chance to actually sit down and play everyone as well. So thank you for the opportunity again, and thank you for the community out there for everything that y'all do, and keep doing what you do, Illumineers.
Very well said, Lance. We love having you on. It's always a great time catching up and chatting with you. As always, you're always welcome back. If you ever have some spicy take you want to bring back to the podcast, you let us know, and we'll get you back on to let the world hear about it. Connor, any shout-outs you want to give? Any recognitions?
Yes, absolutely. Again, a little redundant from Lance, thanking the DuckTale Dads for everything that they do, not only from a Lorcana standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. I know I mentioned that my daughter broke her leg previously, this a couple weeks ago, but we've been battling illnesses left and right, and just facing nonstop challenges over the course of the last month and a half. And whether it's just check-ins, dropping off food, just making sure that I'm doing okay, the DuckTale Dads have really been a group that has gotten my back personally, and I was gonna say professionally, but I mean that's obviously not Lorcana based, but personally and casually, I guess, from the Lorcana standpoint. And so it's just really nice to know that it's not just a front, you guys. DuckTale Dads is the real deal. They are a good group of dads, good group of guys, and again, I can't thank them enough for having me on the podcast and for helping out.
Like I mentioned to Lance, Connor, you're always welcome back. You are the man that got us all into this game effectively by the waterfall effect. So we have you to thank for our pocketbooks being ever so much lighter and our lives being ever so much fuller. So thank you for getting us into this and providing this new hobby for us to all enjoy together and meet new people through. For the listeners out there, obviously you know where to find us. You're already listening in. If you wanted to engage with us on multiple platforms, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Feel free to leave us a comment, drop a like on the videos or the episodes as you feel and see fit. Let us know if we got anything wrong. We'd love to hear and learn more about what we may need to improve on in the future. And reminder to everybody that may be in the area, there's the Mankato Con happening this upcoming weekend, March 20th through the 22nd. So feel free to check that out if you're local, or if you wanted to travel for a bit of a fun time for a weekend. There's plenty of good hotels down in that area that you can bunk up at to have yourself a good old Lorcana weekend down in Mankato. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for tuning in. And as always, let's get the duck out of here.